Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We review anything and everything. And today we're getting into another Jurassic World figure review. This is of the Jurassic World Chaos Theory Gigantic Trackers Suchomimus. Now, for those who may not be familiar, Suchomimus falls into the category of family similar to, obviously the biggest cousin of theirs is the Spinosaurus, which obviously it's been controversial in terms of they didn't have enough bone supply or fossils on it to kind of really determine its actual shape. And now they kind of, gone back and decided that it didn't have as tall of a leg kind of structure, like, what you see in front of you or a T-Rex, and it's more like a alligator kind of structure, lower to the ground, whatever. But nonetheless, it was always depicted as the biggest version of this type of family, but you also have the Baryonyx, which falls into this family. And I wanted to actually try to bring out my old Baryonyx figure that I had, which is, but wait, before this is the regular one, not the Hammer Collection one, so it came before that. So it was pretty much the older version that had like a blue and maybe a dark blue and a gray kind of color scheme. But I wasn't able to find that one for the time of doing this video. But since that time, there's been a lot of improvements to the figures since that time. And I think that this is the most up-to-date of this type of family, the kind of, Suka family, if you want to call it, for lack of a better name, but with the snout, the alligator-ish snout, like the Spinosaurus and all that kind of family like that. And what's funny enough is I wasn't really too sure which one of the dinosaurs was considered bigger in real life, but actually Suchomimus is the bigger cousin to Baryonyx, and I wasn't sure if Baryonyx was considered to be bigger, but Baryonyx, and we're going to go into the size stuff in a bit, but Baryonyx is considerably smaller at about half the weight, somewhere between 1 and 2 tons, and about 28 to 30 feet long, while Suchomimus can range up to about 36 feet long, at least is what it's estimated, and about 4 tons. I don't know how true this is, but it makes them about twice as large. That's going to come into play later on in this other video, because we're going to get into a talking point of this specific figure that's going to definitely relate to all of these kind of statistics. So before we get into the figure itself, let's check out the box real quick. So this is the box for the Chaos Theory line. Now, I don't remember if you could check back in the other previous videos that I've done for some of the Chaos Theory figures, if they have the same box setup or not. I actually don't remember off the top of my head. You got a little bit of branding on the side there. And this right here shows the features for the play features on it. You could pause and read any of the details for yourself. But essentially, the play feature on this is very similar, I would say, to the, I'm going to move the box out of the way, very similar to the play features of the Indominus Rex, the tracker version. It was something tracker, I forget exactly if it's Dino Tracker or whatever the case is, I think it's Dino Tracker. But very similar to how that one was, where that one you could move the tail side to side, and then it would cause the head to move side to side. And they had a button for the biting feature. And I know that there was a different dinosaur I have had before where you could, I think, move the tail like up and down, and it made the jaws go forward. But this is like that. So essentially, I'm just going to show the play feature first, and then we'll get into all the other details later. But you can turn it side to side, and when you turn it all the way, it is a chomping feature. You can go up and down like that, and it has a chomping feature also. And yeah, so those are so all the articulation in the tail affects the, pull it all the way back and it has a snap, pull it all the way forward, it has a snap down. You can't push it side to side, but you rotate it side to side and it has to chomp like that. So it's a lot of motions that you can do in that, which is nice. Like I said before, the Indominus Rex has a similar side-to-side motion where you can turn it, but you have to press a button to make the mouth open up. Obviously, this has the current and modern teeth that they do now, which is great. I'm hoping that it's in focus, that you guys can see this pretty well. But you got the teeth soft teeth now that they do. So everything's kind of up to date. And it's crazy because all the up to date features that Mattel is now putting into their standard line is making their standard line comparable, if not maybe even superior to the original Hammond Collection line, which the original Hammond Collection line did not have the soft rubber teeth until they got to, I don't think they did, and not on all their models, I think, until they got to the T-Rex. And then after that, the T-Rex, I think everything else that came after that became the soft teeth. But before that, I think even the Hammond Collection Baryonyx, I could be mistaken, correct me in the comments, didn't have the soft teeth, but I could be wrong. But I think a few of the Hammond Collection models didn't have the soft teeth in the beginning. So here you could see the paint details on it. The eye slit is very tiny, but it's there. Let's see if on the other side, if it's the same. Yeah. And you can see there's a lot of scarring on this. I'm going to get into all that a little bit later, but I'll point it out. And you can see that they made it different on each side. It's not symmetrical on each side, which is nice because then it makes it seem a little more, unique. Like, okay, this dinosaur got into a specific battle. They didn't just copy each side. You can see right here, it's got some more damage on it. I'm going to change the angle up a little bit. I think that will help with the focusing a little bit. And so you can see some more details here. The paint application looks fairly nice. I'm not a fan of this color, but it works in terms of how they applied everything. You got some more scarring here that's actually been painted. Scarring on the back right here, on the upper back. Scarring on the shoulder, scarring on the side right here. You can see the paint application here for these colors. One thing I actually like that I noticed, which a lot of people probably wouldn't really care much about, but the detail on the fingers, the inner part of the fingers, you see you got those chubby stubs. And I just thought that was nice because I don't think I recall seeing that much for much of the dinosaurs where they really kind of give those pudgy fingers. So it was something that I noticed. A lot of people may not care about that, but to me it was something interesting. Now the feet are, I think they're not oversized, but they're definitely a little bigger. They might be, I don't know if they'd be considered big for this dinosaur size, maybe, but they're not oversized, so they kind of work and they definitely help support the dinosaur, but they do seem, compared to how now they've been really getting on point with the dinosaur's feet, even for the main line, making them not oversized. This one's feet seem a little bit larger than what I think it would normally be, but it's still not that bad. See all the wrinkles, the details. It's interesting that they have the feet to be all black like here. It is a hard stop in terms of the color. I think they could have put a little bit more of this blotching coming down. They have it on the outer part, but maybe even put it on the inner part just to kind of show that it doesn't seem like such a hard stop on the feet in terms of the paint. Here you have the app code. And you have the tail. Now, the thing about it is I've actually watched people comment about the tail feeling short. And I have 2 points on the tail that I want to mention. One is this part here feels like it could fall off. Like not easy, but if you had kids playing with it rough, I could see that happening. So I just want to point that out. But then 2, as far as, so the tails on all the figures in general have gotten better. They're longer than what they used to be because they used to be really bad. I won't say that they're oversized. They may not be exactly to the way they're supposed to be, but they're definitely longer than what they used to be. I could see back in the days, this tail would probably cut half this length, and that would have been it from the end part. This end piece right here would have been half its length, and then it probably would have came all the way here and stopped. So I definitely think the tails are longer. But being that the tails are not as long as they could be, adding that curve on this figure, I think was a little bit of a mistake. And I've seen other people who reviewed it said that they felt like something felt a little wrong, or they felt a little short, or that, they couldn't really pinpoint what it is. I think it's the fact that when I noticed this, if it didn't have that curve, now I don't want to put too much pressure on the tail like this, but if this was, I want to do like this. If it was like that, it probably would be a little better if it didn't have that curve on it. Now you could probably heat, this part is a soft rubber. You could probably heat this up and then bend it out, and then you would probably get it to come at least about here. So at least about almost an inch longer in length if you were able to bend it out. And I think that would balance this figure out, I'm sorry, in terms of that length. Otherwise, I don't think it's bad. Once you just kind of get over that scene. But if you look right here, this angle, it doesn't look as long. And then when I do like that angle, you see it kind of looks a little bit more longer relative to the angle you're looking at it, because you can kind of see the tail a little better. The curve is not, as pronounced when you look at a certain angle. So that was something I noticed. Here you see more scarring going here. Now, as always on my channel, I like to get into, you got more scarring there. I like to get into measurements and whatnot. So let me get a calculator. I was about to start my measurements and didn't even have my calculator out. So let's get into the measurements of the Suchomimus. Now, like I said before, his length is to be up to 36 feet, but I'm going to tell you why it doesn't matter if this figure isn't close to that length, because the one that was depicted in the actual show, I'm going to go into details with that because I've watched the show, the season 2 is where this one appears in, and it actually has a pretty major scene which kind of goes to the way they configured this, and we'll get into that in a moment. I'll get into these details. But so he wasn't or that oversized, so I mean, he could have had the same proportions but maybe a more lengthier tail, and I think that would have just been enough. But let's see. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Baryonyx's height is roughly about 12 feet. We're going to ask Alexa. Alexa, what's the height of Suchomimus?
Suchomimus is 12 feet tall.
Okay. So you heard it there first, you guys. I said Baryonyx, I meant to say Suchomimus. Suchomimus, let's assume that that's accurate, 12 feet, which I think it should be fairly enough, because fairly accurate, because he's not as big as the really big ones, dinosaurs. So his length here is coming up to, let me turn them because it'll be easier to measure with the curve of the tail, like this. So we're coming up to 14 inches. Now, obviously, we're going to measure off that, but mind you, we could probably squeeze out another inch because of the tail being curved, but we're going to go with 14 inches in length. And his height is exactly 6 inches at the top of his head. And we'll measure from the head, even though sometimes you measure from the body, but he's pretty evened out, even though his head is a little bit taller, but it's not by much. So we'll do from the head at this point. That's fine. So the 14 inches comes up to 22.4 feet long, which is nowhere near the full length that a Suchomimus could be. And then the height is, we said 6 inches, is 9.6 feet. So definitely smaller than what the full size Suchomimus can be, which is fine. It doesn't have to be a full grown. Not every dinosaur has to be depicted as its full size or full grown. But in the show, this is more in line with the size of what Suchomimus was. Now, I have Ellie here for scale to kind of throw into the mix, and let me pull Suchomimus back a little bit, and she is right underneath his head. So now it gives you an actual proper sense of the scale. And this was how it was depicted in the show, because in the show, the kids are obviously, and if anyone has any of the figures of the kids, which I do not have one of the kids from the show available, but I do have Tim or Timmy, and gives you a sense of his scale. And so when the kids were running from him, Suchomimus seemed huge compared to them. And even here, the Suchomimus seems huge compared to Ellie. But yes, so he was this size in the cartoon versus the kids or any of the adults, because there was an adult on scene as well. Now, here is the kicker. Here's where we're going to get into more details. And this video is dragging long, but I just want to get into this stuff because I just want you guys to know the situation if you guys had never seen the show. So, because I seen another reviewer who reviewed this and probably didn't watch the show to understand that this one is very scarred up, because in the show, he actually battles Majungasaurus. And so we have Majungasaurus here, and we're going to take the figures away, the human figures, to kind of bring this into the element of things. So he actually battles Majungasaurus. Now, this Majungasaurus, in comparison to Suchomimus in the show, Suchomimus was roughly about the same size as Majungasaurus in the show, but the only difference was Majungasaurus seemed a little more beefier. Suchomimus seemed a little more lengthier, even though he's a little more lankier. But nonetheless, they both were comparable in size, though you did get a sense that Majungasaurus was a little bit more just chunkier. I think Suchomimus may have been a little longer. They definitely were comparable in size, and it was a very even battle. At the end of it, Majungasaurus ends up winning and killing Suchomimus. So I think the reason why they scarred him up so bad, more so than I've seen any new, I haven't really seen scars on the newer dinosaurs, a lot of new detail, but not necessarily scars. This one's scarred up like crazy because he actually loses the battle and he actually dies. So this would be fitting if I think they went with that, because they knew in the cartoon he actually dies and he was getting eaten at the end of it, after Majungasaurus was done with him. Now, with that being said, after looking up the specs of Majungasaurus, from what I looked up, can grow up to 23 feet long and be about a ton to maybe a ton and a half, or like somewhere a little bit more than a ton in weight. So he's considerably smaller than Suchomimus. And so in this case, we were looking at a Suchomimus that was relatively around the same size of the Majungasaurus, but that could mean that he was a lot more younger, because based on how big Suchomimus can be, he would be considerably bigger. And even these two figures here, Suchomimus is considerably, I would say he's considerably bigger, even though Majungasaurus, for his size, is chunkier, meaning like if I boost his length of Majungasaurus, he actually has a better proportioned tail. So let me put them side by side. So he does actually, mine is not standing up all that great right now, but he is, you know, if I increase his size proportion, you would see he's chunkier. But here, because the Suchomimus is bigger in general, he's going to appear to be more, you know, a little bit more bigger. But nonetheless, the scaling of the size when they fought was something close to this. Majungasaurus maybe a little bit bigger than he is now, but for the most part, he did look not as long, but he won the battle. So with that being said, like I said, that depicts why, you know, you have the whole scarring and stuff like that. So overall, I think that he's a great figure. And if someone wants to replicate that battle, they could. And I don't think even at the scale that both of these are here, that it's not too thrown off in terms of that battle, because Majungasaurus still looks beefy and he could still get the upper hand if it just happened to be that way. But nonetheless, this figure to me looks pretty nice and it's definitely worth purchasing. But like I said, as always, I like doing the whole measurement. So I hope that those measurements helped you guys in terms of just knowing that he still is considerably bigger than a regular human. And that is nice. If you guys have any comments that you guys want to mention down below, if you've seen the show or any thoughts that you guys have, just throw them down below. And as always, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.